record. Video's running. All righty. I think we've got everything here. Well, Josh, how things going?
Good, good. This is actually my first Zoom. I don't know if you can tell by my face. I'm sunburned. I'm coaching, or running track meets, or doing all kinds of craziness. So this is actually my first Zoom that I think I will have been on since early March.
How many sports do you coach?
So I'm the this is kind of wild now. Buckle up for this. So for 9 years, I was the head football coach. And that was it, and did assistant baseball. And then about Memorial Day weekend a year ago, they made me athletic director. And so I carried us through that process, and then the end of the spring sport year last year, started grad school this past summer, still the head football coach, still the baseball coach. And because I'm athletic director, I kind of fall into a lot of different duties that kind of take me a little bit further than I normally have in terms of like worrying about track meets. That's why I haven't been
involved in track a lot.
Yeah, I see, and I'm not a track person at all, but we have nobody to drive our track team to any of our meets, and they're on Tuesdays, and we just so happen to get rained out of today's is the only reason that I'm at this one. But so on top of all that, me being an administrator too, so we've had NC check-ins today. We've had a bunch of different things going on, so it's been kind of wild. It's kind of went from a career perspective, 0 to 100 real quick. You know, everything was pretty much for 9 years the same way, and then
that's what happens when the school finds a good leader.
It changed quickly.
Yeah, it's going to change even more quickly when you finish everything. You better put your running shoes on, fella. You're going to be pulled in so many directions you won't know where to go. Okay, I've got 6:58 here. Let's see here. I'm going to give another minute here too, Josh. I see David Harris just came on. David, can you hear me?
He needs to unmute.
He should be able to hear me. David Harris, can you hear me? Yeah, I see him up here, but I don't see him. Okay.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, David, good to hear you, buddy.
Just can't see you.
Just can't see you. Josh, I still have, I've not gone through your submission. I'm still trying to catch up with some other folks. I spent about 6 hours on just one today.
Awesome. I think everything, I'm hopeful. I literally broke it down and just verbatim every single one of those 10 elements. I just copy and pasted it. And then, my task 3 was 11 pages.
Yeah, I know it was long.
So it was pretty in depth.
Yeah, well, they get more in depth, and when you get into the next one this summer, it's going to be even more in depth. But you're only going to have 10 weeks. So, but hopefully you won't be involved too much with school. You'll have your summers off. But I don't know if you'll be involved in the coaching aspect of your school in the summertime or not. They have spring ball practice, anything like that coming up?
Yeah, we'll have a lot of ball practices, but those are in the evenings, and then I have a day job in the summer. So
okay.
Yeah, I won't really get to slow down much.
You won't. How's everybody doing tonight? I see a couple of us online here. I got 8, and y'all coming in here. Hey, Tori, how you doing? Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
How you doing, young lady? I'm gonna jump right into this, everybody. And let me see here. Share. All right. Yeah. All right. Get Okay. Task 4 is not much to it because you've already done task 5 in your student learning component. Yep. So, and this is basically the same thing that we've been doing all along. This is task 4, except in the perfect world, what you should have done in task 1 in your EPSL was you're supposed to have done 13 competencies, and in this semester you're supposed to do the other 9. So by the time you get through all 5 semesters, folks, you would have already done your competencies. Each competency would have done 3 different times. You've done your communication 3 times, your conflict management 3 times, your delegation 3 times. And this is to give you more and more experiences with your clinical internship. And I think I've gone in my little lecture before about the fact that these 21 competencies, everybody, is built around mounds and mounds of research. And these competencies doesn't necessarily have to relate to public schools. They can relate to corporate world as well. So, but what they've discovered, and I say they, I always use the word they, discovered is that if you're going to be an effective leader in anything, you've got to be able to handle and you've got to be able to do these 21 competencies. And if you notice, it goes everything from management to delegation to communication. Emotional component, I think emotional intelligence is probably one of the key ones there, because I'm glad to see they finally tied in the emotional element with the leadership, because I don't think you can be one without the other. So let me get on here. All right. If you notice, task 4, TAS, you can't spell. The candidate will reflect on the APTO experience by aligning the course content to the clinical experience. You will reflect on the development of the competencies that are critical to effective school leadership. The process of selecting the competencies are evidenced throughout the EPSL and the APTEL. And they include a narrative, which you've already done, and you've got to provide evidences to go along with that. Now, let me be clear on this, because I think there's always been some confusion. There was some confusion last night in our class, in our meeting of the faculty. You've got 2 pieces here, okay? You've got to write your narrative and explaining how let's just take, for example, the first one, the communication. An element of communication, a story of communication. Most of you have already done this anyhow, so you know what I'm talking about. So you're given your scenario on how you communicated with a group of people. All right, you write about it and you talk about it. Now, that's basically regarding the web standards. That's how we document evidence on how you folks are doing, okay, and how you're meeting these standards. Now, the other piece, the more stringent component. That's just when you take your artifacts, you take your emails, your memos, your pictures, where you actually show how you have communicated with your particular staff members. So on one side you've got your narrative, on the other side you've got your evidence, and they've got to come together. Now, the purpose is that for you to be able to get the verbal part of it and the experience part of it, and then you've got to show DPI, which is task stream, how you have met each of these different elements, okay, these different competencies. And this is why you have the artifacts and why they're so important, okay? Now, the instructions are basically the same thing, basically, except now your narrative is going to be supported by your evidences. Folks, this is why it's so important that you have pictures, that you have documentation emails, that you have some concrete component that you can put in task stream and show DPI how you have met each of these competencies. They don't want to hear about it. You're not going to be able to explain it to them. That's not what they want to hear. You've done that with your Blackboard. But they don't want to see how you have met each of these 21 competencies with concrete examples. Now, I can't begin to tell you what those examples might be. That's up to you. but you've got to be able to show them concretely how you have met each of these 21 competencies 3 different times. That's why you're on the 5-semester route, but so that would be easier for you. If you were on the 3-semester route, you'd have had to done the APSL and the APTEL in 1 semester. Now try to wrap your brain around that thing. So basically, that's exactly what we're doing in task 4. I've got your prompt. You've already read it. Okay. The one piece that's missing, and it's right here in your template, is I have yet to read an in-depth report or narrative from any of y'all where you have reflected upon your narrative coupled with your mentor's perspective. And it talks about collaboration with your mentor, and we've kind of overlooked that piece. But they talk about how you took your part of it and reflected on it, you did it. But what was the feedback from your mentor? Did they have anything to add to that? Anything they suggest? For example, if you did a presentation on a PowerPoint or a Prezi, and you did this promoting your improvement plan on how to improve your teacher empowerment in your school, you need a picture of you actually doing this presentation. David, you've already done one of these. This is really good on. I've seen yours. But you need to show that. But do you ever think about, okay, what impact did your mentor have on you? Did they ask you to reflect upon your presentation? Did they say, this part was good, this part you need to work on? We very seldom ever write about the response we get back from our mentor, if we get any response back at all. But that's the ultimate goal, is you having your experiences, you write about your experiences, your mentor ties into this, and you get feedback from them, and then you wrap your brain around this whole narrative, and then you've got to be able to extrapolate from that narrative. You've got to put it somewhere in task stream and your folio and show DPI how you met that particular competency by showing elements or evidence as to how you did that. Okay? Are there any questions on that?
So with our narrative, should it be a paragraph, or because I feel like what I've been writing is probably not long enough.
Ms. Johnson, it's not the length of it. It's the depth of it. What Gardner-Webb is looking for is what have you learned by your experiences in communication? You don't have to write a paragraph. Matter of fact, you can even put bullets down. The thing of it is, you want to be able to take an idea, an experience that you had, and you want to be able to relate to Gardner-Webb what you learned from that experience. Okay? And it's okay to share your negative feelings. It's okay to share your frustration. Okay? You can say, well, I presented at a faculty meeting, which is an element of communication. And then we talked about this, and I've got some feedback from my staff on an issue. I didn't feel like I did a good job explaining that, or either I didn't have enough information about the component they were talking about. So I'm going to have to go back and do some more homework and some research and come back to them and give them the answer they're looking for. That's okay. You with me? That's okay to do that. So you don't have, it's not how much you write. It's the depth of your writing, because we want to see what you've learned from each of these experiences, and how has it helped you develop into a leader. You see how we're changing your paradigm from the classroom to that of a school leader?
Yes.
That's exactly what our goal is. You've been a classroom teacher a long time, and now you've made the decision to step out into the area of what I call frontal leadership, where you're out in front of everybody, you're on stage all the time, and everybody's looking at you. It's a role model. They're looking at you for answers. They're looking at you for coaching. They're looking at you for support. They're looking to you for answers, for information. Okay, so you're going to have to get away from, change your paradigm from working with just students to working with students and teachers and parents. You're already working with two of them, teachers and parents. I mean, students and parents. But now you're going to be working with students, parents, and teachers. And in order to become an effective leader, these 21 competencies, we have to see evidence that you have gone through these experiences, Jennifer, and you are learning from these experiences. And the thing about it is, it's okay to mess up. That's what I want you to understand. It's okay to mess up because you learn from your mistakes. You know, so if you write about, well, I did this wrong or I did that wrong, that's okay. Okay, that's all right. This is the point we want you to grow, because when you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes and you correct those mistakes, then you become a better leader. But you don't want to write about that in your folio. All you want to do in the folio is simply evidences of how you met that particular component. Okay, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Now, I got ahead of myself here. I want to let you know that your narratives go to Blackboard and your artifacts go to your competency folio and task stream. You already know that. You've already done that, okay? Don't put anything in task stream yet. Just get it ready, get your artifacts ready, but don't put anything in, and don't put anything on task stream yet, okay? All right. I think that's it. That's what I've got. Any questions on this tonight, y'all?
I have one more question.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
With the competency in personal ethics and values, I'm having I think I'm overthinking it. What would be kind of an example for that?
I'll say that again. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying.
So at the competency for personal ethics and values, sorry, I'm losing my voice.
It's okay.
I think I'm overthinking it, and I'm not really sure of how to show an example of how I have high standards and honesty and integrity. Like, how would I show that competency?
Well, let me ask this question, okay? Have you had experiences where your administrator or a colleague or even a parent may have asked you to do something or perform something and you went ahead and did it?
Yes.
Okay, can you give me an example of that?
So I guess today the principal asked me to go work with the head guidance counselor to start the Excel spreadsheet for the allotment. And I guess instead of waiting on her to come guide me, I just went and did it with her. Would that be like an example?
That would be a perfect example, because people depend upon you. They trusted you to do that job. Even though they should have been there to guide you through it, you did it on your own. I'm assuming it all went well.
Yeah. I learned a lot.
Okay, you trusted to that. Weren't you trusted to do that?
Yes.
Then they ask you, if they didn't trust you to do that and do it correctly, they wouldn't have asked you, would they?
Right. Okay.
That goes along with ethics.
All right.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, y'all. All right. I got a quick, did I tell you my y'all story at the University of Maine? I didn't tell you that. You know, I've always got a story for you. You all got a story. Well, for 8 years, I served on a national evaluation team called NCAPE. Now it's called CAPE. And for 8 years, I traveled all over the nation, from South Dakota to Maine to Texas. And when you go there, universities, you get into different cultures. Like, for example, I was in a restaurant in Maine and asked for sweet tea, and the lady looked at me like, what is that? Okay, they don't have sweet tea up there. Anyhow, we spent 4 days putting together all the data and all the findings about the School of Education at the University of Maine. One of them wasn't this particular one. And we have, at the end of 4 days, we are sharing with the university committee our findings for what we feel like they need to do to improve their School of Education. Gardner Webb's going through that right now. Matter of fact, we have a meeting Sunday with the CAPE team. So I'm sitting there reading from my typed out format to the president of the university, the provost, and associate dean and dean. And I'm reading the comment, and I said, Dr. Johnson, according to our findings, what y'all need to do is, he said, what? And I said, Dr. Johnson, according to our findings, what y'all need to do is, he said, what? I said, is there a problem? He said, yeah, Dr. Pickard, what does y'all mean? And I had to embarrass myself that this is just part of our culture, which is to say y'all. So I never got away from it. I like that. I'm a Southern boy, just like you people. Well, none of you are. All right, I want to talk about very briefly, and this is probably my one or two last ones. Todd Whitaker talks about setting expectations, and he has some really, really neat information, I think, that I wanted to share with y'all about this. Before I go on, does anybody have any question about task 4? We're okay? Okay. I want to share with you some of his findings. He talks about, he says, one of the most exciting aspects of being a principal is that each day is different. And one of the most challenging aspects about being a principal is that each day is different. Josh, you can vouch for this. He says the school year is a chance to kind of set the bar and set the tone for everybody, and teachers, and students, and everybody. And it's a prime time for getting classroom management. He talks specifically about classroom management. He says this, and I never thought about this from this perspective. Great teachers are clear about their approach on student behavior. And the key word that they strive for is preventing bad behavior on students. Okay, and the key is to establish those expectations at the beginning of the year. The key word for great teachers is prevention. You want to prevent these behaviors. Now, your least effective teachers look at it from the standpoint of what Todd Whitaker talks about, revenge. They're motivated after a student misbehaves, they want to be punished, and they want to see them upset, and they want to see them punished. And basically, it's just that, you see the difference is the great teachers want to set a pattern as to how to prevent these bad behaviors in the future, and your least effective teachers want to say, I want to see these students punished for what they did. And it goes on to say that great teachers want to prevent a student from misbehaving and focus on the future, and poor teachers want to know what's going to happen after the student misbehaves, and they focus on the past, not the present. Now, as principals, we understand this, okay? And you've been on the other side of the fence about what it's like to have support, not have support from your administration. But we have a responsibility as principals to support our teachers. This is critical in our role as a leader. But he goes on to talk about that you try to set a new paradigm shift as to how teachers can approach discipline in their classrooms. And you want to do this the first of the year, okay? The key thing is this: teachers just do not want to be supported. They want to feel supported. This is not the same thing as Todd Whitaker says. He says, teachers, he says that a teacher's mindset has to be taken away from the idea of getting revenge and punishment to that of developing a paradigm where revenge is not the issue, but teaching them how to set a benchmark to how to prevent these negative behaviors to start with, okay? And he goes on and does a contrast. An ineffective teacher wants a student to be upset when they leave the office. They want to feel like, you're going to learn your lesson this way. It's kind of like being spanked, okay? Good leaders do not want students to be angry when they leave the office. Angry students, this is a point he made, angry students are a problem, not a solution. And I thought that was a good point he made. He says, our goal is to have students not repeat their negative behaviors. The point of consequences is not to make a student feel bad, but the point is to help the student change their behaviors. And the key to do this is teach a student how to behave, and teach a teacher how to set the standards, how to set the benchmark, but teach them how to prevent these behaviors to start with. And he goes on to give an idea. I'm getting ahead of myself, but he talks about school leaders sometimes mistakenly assume that staff members let me come back to that. I'll come back to that. This is what I want. This goes to what I'm going to talk about. In a faculty meeting, he sets up a board and he talks about. He says, "Okay, let's talk about strategies in which we can deal with student behaviors." They talked about moving closer to the student, making eye contact, put the students in the hallway, send them to the office, you know. And then he asked the question, well, how many of these discipline strategies work all the time? And the answer is none of them do. So he says, this is the point he wants to make. He says, good teachers will pull from their bag of disciplines maybe once or twice a day. But teachers that are less than effective will pull from that bag of strategies all the time on every class period till they become totally ineffective. You know, students become immune. Well, they know what's coming. I mean, this is what Mr. Smith does every day, all the time. And his discipline no longer has any impact on their behaviors. Okay. So he goes on to say that the key thing here is to remember that prevention, we try to prevent the behaviors rather than act on the behaviors. Okay. And he says, remember, no single reaction will work every time, which is why we need to center our attention on and efforts on preventing behaviors, not reacting to them. And he goes on to talk about the ugly behaviors that when a teacher becomes so frustrated, they begin to yell, they begin to lose their temper, they begin to use sarcasm, they belittle students. And this is what he calls the ugly behaviors, the ugly ones that you pull from the bag of discipline, from the tools of discipline. He says, we never want to get that far. Now, let me back up here a little bit earlier. He says, we want to make sure that our new teachers are aware of the support they have by you. We don't want to take for granted they'll automatically assume that and understand the culture of the school that we have. We want to make sure that we're there for them. And it's okay to go by their room from time to time, ask them how things are going, and ask them again how they can help, how you can help. That's that line of communication. Know that they can always come to you if there are issues outside their own team, because there may be times when they need to do that. Okay. Now, Dr. Whitaker goes on to talk about effective principles established at the beginning of the year, what they call core beliefs or non-negotiables. That is, basically non-negotiables are those behaviors that we do not use against students. We treat students with utmost respect. And he talks about this, the 3 no-nos. He says, yelling, arguing, humiliating. He says, how many times, he says, when is it okay to use those against with the students? And the response back is, they never use this with a student. You should never humiliate, never argue, never yell. And he brings it up. And then he says, well, that's great. And then he says, since we've decided it's never appropriate to use any of these tools these tools against our students, then he says, we'll never use it in our school. And I will never expect to see this happening, because we said right now, we're not going to do these 3 things with our students. You said it was wrong. I agree. So let's decide right now, we're not going to use any of these 3 components in addressing our students. No yelling, no arguing, no humiliating. So you see what he's done right there? He has set the bar for the whole faculty to know right off the bat, these 3 things are out of limits. These are off limits. These are things that are non-negotiable. We will not do that with our students. So he set the bar for the whole staff at the beginning of the year, so they now know that is not going to be something they will use in their classroom. And I want to quote this. And he says, great teachers establish expectations at the very start of the school year, and so do great principals. What is the variable? It's not the specifics of the expectations, but that the expectations are clearly established, they're focused on this for the future, and they are consistently reinforced. All principals can do this. The great ones do. And that's why I think Dr. Whitaker was so good at this. He's such, and that's why I take time outside the realm of our classroom to share these little pearls of wisdom that that he's done. So this is one of the last chapters he's done, setting expectations for the year. I'll send this to you. You have in the video, but I'll send it to you as a PowerPoint as well. Y'all, okay. Y'all have any questions tonight? We're okay? Okay. I'll send this to you. This week we have to be at the church. I'll be at the church Easter time. I have to be at the university this Sunday. The Cape team is there. We're going to get questioned about some things. You probably maybe had an invitation. I don't know, because I'm an alumnus of Gardner Webb as well as a professor, so I cover both areas. I don't have anything else tonight. Do y'all have anything you want to add to this? Let me say this real quick. You're doing great. Your writing has improved tremendously. I'm very proud of each and every one of you, where you've come from last August till now. If you sat back and watched your writing in August and September versus what you are now, you'll see you really have begun to write. You begin to learn how to write like a professional. So I commend you, each and every one of you, on this. If you have nothing else, that's all I have tonight. And we'll see you next Tuesday with Dr. Sumner. And I'm just basically sitting on the sideline. And we'll probably meet the next week and basically summarize the 4 tasks, kind of polish up everything. And at that point in time, we're ready to wrap up the semester. And you've got about a 2-week break, maybe 2.5 week break before we get into the summer session. But let me let you know, the summer session is going to be packed. You got 10 weeks to pack in 16 weeks of work. So get your running shoes on, get your vacations in early, okay? If you can. If not, take us on vacation wherever you go. So your spouse or your significant other can look at you at the table and say, "What are you doing? We're on vacation." "I'm in school, remember?" So I'm sure by now they're used to that. You're all doing well. I'm proud of you. Hang in there, folks, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Good night, everybody.